Welcome to the Dr. Creepy Show, the podcast where we dive into the dark and twisted tales of history. I'm your host, and today we're taking a deep dive into the chilling story of H.H. Holmes, America's first serial killer. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the Dr. Creepy Show and let us know in the comments which bone-chilling ghost stories you'd like us to cover in the future. In 1896, H.A. Holmes was convicted and hanged for murdering his business partner, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. Holmes is believed to have killed at least 9 people, and some research even suggests the number could be in the hundreds. Talk about an overachiever. He designed a building known as the Murder Castle, where he allegedly committed all his heinous crimes. Legend has it that during the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago, Holmes used the Murder Castle as a hotel where guests checked in but never checked out. Now that's what I call a no vacancy policy. While the truth may be murkier, one thing's for sure, Holmes' Hotel of Horror was equipped with trapdoors, torture devices, and even a basement crematorium. Talk about a one-stop shop for all your nightmare needs. Holmes was not only a killer, but also a fraud, a liar, and a cheat. He even wrote confessions for the Hearst newspaper group, where he claimed to have killed 27 people, but many of those people were alive or died from other causes. Talk about stretching the truth. Holmes sure had a knack for manipulation. Now let's rewind the clock and explore Holmes' early years. Before becoming the White City Devil, he was born as a man, Webster Mudgett, in 1861. Holmes' parents were strict religious zealots who disciplined him with an iron fist. Some sources even say they made him go hungry for days. That's one way to lose weight, I guess. Holmes, being the unreliable narrator he was, claimed he had a loving and religious upbringing, but with his track record, it's hard to know what to believe. One story he shared from his school days involved bullies forcing him into a doctor's office and placing skeleton hands on his face. Talk about a hands-on anatomy lesson. Maybe that's what sparked his interest in medicine, or maybe it just revealed his twisted nature. As Holmes grew older, he retreated to the woods near his family's house where he would dissect animals. I guess he really wanted to get to the heart of the matter, starting with small reptiles and working his way up to rabbits and dogs. Holmes became quite comfortable with dissection. It's perhaps a little too comfortable considering what he would do later in life. There were warning signs even during his teenage years. Holmes' best friend, Tom, fell from an abandoned home they were exploring. Holmes claimed he witnessed the fall, but many speculated whether he had a hand in it. Yikes, talk about a suspicious friendship. And when Holmes met his first wife, Clara Lovering, things didn't exactly start off on the right foot. He threatened another boy who was flirting with her. Smooth move, Holmes. That's one way to win a girl's heart. Now, marriage was far from a fairy tale, with regular arguments and reports of Lovering sporting bruises. Not exactly a match made in heaven. Eventually, Lovering left Holmes, taking their baby with her, and they never reunited. Guess you could say their love story was more like a horror story. Holmes really knew how to bring his work home with him. Talk about creepy homework. But don't worry, folks. No legal consequences came from that grisly discovery. Holmes just got a little slap on the wrist and was told not to bring his work home again. Yeah, like that's going to stop him. Holmes had quite the entrepreneurial spirit, listeners. During his medical studies, he didn't just focus on textbooks and lectures. Oh no, he had a side hustle that would make your skin crawl. He started stealing bodies from the school's laboratory, and then he'd go ahead and mangle or burn the remains to make them unrecognizable. Talk about going the extra mile. And you won't believe what he did next. He cashed in on life insurance policies after the bodies were found and deemed accidental deaths. I guess you could say he had a real talent for turning death into profit. Who needs a day job when you can scam your way to riches? But Holmes wasn't satisfied with stealing bodies from the lab. Oh no, he had bigger plans. He started stealing bodies from graves and morgues to sell them to medical schools or for his own research and dissection. I guess you could say he was the ultimate body snatcher. This scam earned Holmes thousands of dollars. But like any good con artist, the money was never enough. He needed a new investor in his fiendish future. So what did he do? He married Myrta Belknap, even though he was still legally married to his first wife. Talk about juggling wives like a pro. And Belknap's parents, being wealthy as well, provided Holmes with the money he needed to purchase the vacant lot in Chicago. Smart move, Holmes putting the deed under your wife's name to keep the creditors at bay. This guy really knew how to work the system. But wait, the plot thickens his viewers had a habit of becoming engaged to women, convincing them to sign over their property and wealth to him, and then making them disappear. Smooth move, Holmes. I guess you could say he had a way of making women fall head over heels for him. And it wasn't just random women. These are women he had personal and business relationships with. It's like he had a knack for luring people into his web of deceit. Nobody, no crime, right? It was difficult to prove Holmes had anything to do with their vanishing acts, but don't worry, listeners, justice caught up with Holmes eventually. Now let's talk about Holmes's legendary murder castle. You know, the one with hidden passageways, trapdoors, and secret staircases. Well, here's the twist. It was never really a hotel. The first floor had storefronts, and the second floor had apartments for long-term rental. Holmes told people it would be a hotel, but it was never finished or open to the public. It was just another lie to swindle money from unsuspecting suppliers, investors, and insurers. Talk about a real estate nightmare. And what about those hundreds of tourists turning into victims after staying in the murder castle? Well, that's more legend than truth. The evidence suggests that the 9 people Holmes likely killed were all people he already knew. Many of his victims were women he had personal and business relationships with. So sorry to burst your bubble, but it wasn't a hotel of horror after all. But hey, don't let that stop you from keeping an eye out for hidden passageways and trapdoors in your own homes. You never know what might be lurking beneath the surface. In the end, justice caught up with Holmes. He was tried and sentenced to death by hanging. But get this, listeners, he had one unusual request before his execution. He asked for his coffin to be encased in cement and buried 10 feet deep. I guess even in death, Holmes was afraid someone with the same proclivities as him would come after his remains. Talk about a final touch of paranoia. And there you have it, the twisted tale of H.L. Holmes, America's own devil in the White City. But remember, folks, the story doesn't end here. Holmes left behind a legacy that continues to capture our imaginations and haunt our nightmares. Hollywood is even getting in on the action with a series based on the best-selling novel, The Devil in the White City. Who knows what new horrors will be uncovered? So, what do you think? Were the stories of H.A. Holmes' so-called murder castle true? Could one man have committed all these heinous crimes? Lore has his story been transformed and amplified over the decades into the stuff of urban legend? Let us know in the comments below. If you have the courage, share and subscribe.
Dr. Creepy.